Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. Let us go through the thoughts and proceedings of Monday, 22nd October 2018. 787 788 789. Honorable June.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleague, good afternoon. Under report, Mr. Speaker, item 5, the first line there, that Mr. Speaker informed members of the women of plan to impeach His Excellency, Mr. Akinwumi Ambode. I think the impression you created was to inform the member of the public per se, not the honorable member in the chamber. I think this should be corrected, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Council.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the on 789, page 789, corrigendum that was corrected yesterday, in the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 18th October 2018, on page 786, under Ifilo, line 2, after the phrase Oshishe Ile, insert T. I also added that it should be TU, which is YIO, as opposed to the YOO that was there yesterday, because it has changed the context. The T there has changed the context of the phrase that is being said. Thank you.
Mr. Akande.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 789, under recap, the House affirmed. It's not the House that affirmed. It's Honorable Duto that affirmed.
I have examined the votes and proceedings of Monday, 22nd October 2018, and approval is here granted. Any message from the governor?
Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the governor.
Any other announcement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished honorable members, we received a letter from the Office of the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice addressed to the Clerk of the House titled Proposal for Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Regulations 2018 and Lagos State Building Control Regulations 2018. With your kind permission, sir, I wish to read a summary of the letter as follows. The Lagos State government enacted the Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law in 2010, now CAP U2 Laws of Lagos State of Nigeria 2015, which repealed and harmonized all planning laws in the state, namely the Lagos State Urban Renewal Board Law of 1991, Lagos State Urban and Regional Planning Board Law of 1998, and Lagos State Planning Commission Law of 2003. By necessary implications, the regulations made pursuant to the repealed laws were also affected, since they derive their existence from the repealed laws, leaving the state with no single regulation to set standards and guide the built industries, resulting in non-regulations of this all-important sector. The proposed regulations will enhance the regulatory power of the state government and reduce cases of incessant collapse of buildings to the barest minimum, and also set out, amongst others, the requirements to be followed for issuance of requisite permits to any person, corporate body, government or its agencies intending to carry out any development on any land within the state. 60 copies of the proposed regulations have been forwarded to the Office of the Clerk of the House for the consideration and approval of the House. Signed by Mr. M. Adeniji Kazim, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. Sir, I also wish to announce the presence of one school at the gallery to observe the House proceedings. Precisely 15 students from Lara Day School, located at 19 Adeniji Jones Street, Ikeja, Lagos State, led by Mr. Olisa Peter and Mr. Okere Stanley. That's all, sir.
petition,
None, Mr. Speaker, sir.
matter of urgent public importance, personal explanation, reports. Majority Leader.
Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, the main item on the order paper today and business of the day is the presentation of a report on House of Assembly Bill number 50, Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Bill 2018, to be presented by Honorable Adam N.B., being the Chairman, Committee on Tourism, Arts and Culture. May I humbly move that this House reverts to Committee of the Whole to be able to take the said presentation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
BC Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion moved by
All in
Mr.
favor say ayes. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Noel.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, sir. Honorable Speaker and fellow colleagues, report of the Ad hoc Committee on Tourism, Arts and Culture on Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Bill 2018. Right Honorable Speaker and my distinguished colleagues, the House at the plenary session of Monday, 16th April 2018, deliberated on a bill for a law to provide for the establishment of the Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency and for connected purposes, and committed same to the Committee on Tourism, Arts and Culture for further scrutiny and necessary actions. In line with the paragraph 1 above, the committee met and resolved to organize a stakeholders meeting on the bill in line with Order 73 of the Business, Rules and Standing Orders of the House, with a view to seeking inputs from the honorable members of this noble House, stakeholders and the general public to enrich the proposed law and report its findings accordingly. Consequent upon the above, a stakeholders meeting was held on Wednesday, 23rd May 2018 at the Latif Jacondi Auditorium Assembly Complex, LSHA, Ikeja, where presentations were made and memoranda submitted by participants. The honorable members, staff and invited stakeholders were in attendance at the forum. 1. Welcome address. The Chairman, Committee on Tourism, Arts and Culture welcomed participants to the stakeholders meeting on Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Bill 2018, informing the intent of the proposed law was to make Lagos State a major tourism destination, stating that tourism across the world is becoming more profitable and attractive. He further informed that for the state to compete globally as a tourist destination, there is a need to establish an agency that would not be slowed down with the bureaucratic bottlenecks, but capable of enhancing tourism potentials of the state. He enjoined the participants to feel free to express their opinions on the bill, adding that their input will form the bedrock of passing the bill into the law. Keynote address. Honorable Eshilokun Soni Wasiu, Deputy Speaker representing the Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Mudashir Obasa, extended the well wishes of Mr. Speaker to the stakeholders present at the meeting. He stated that the gathering was aimed at collecting inputs from stakeholders in the tourism industry in order to have an enabling law that would transform tourism development in the state. He further stated that tourism industry has a great potential of not only generating revenue for the state, but also capable of creating employment for the teeming youths.
Oga, I beg. I beg once more. Not be 88 news. There is a report, so please.
As your lordship is, sir. He further stated that tourism industry has a great potential of not only generating revenue for the state, but also capable of creating employment for the teeming youth. He cited instances of United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia who have turned tourism to gold mine in their various countries. He therefore charged the proposed Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency to follow the above example by exploring the great potentials of tourism in Lagos State. He added that officials of the agency should go into archives and research into the history of the indigenous people and culture of Lagos for the consumption of foreign and local visitors to enhance tourism development in the state. He concluded by urging the stakeholders to contribute meaningfully to the proposed law. 3. Overview of the bill. Honorable Agunbiari SOB Ikorodu 1 informed that the bill was an executive bill targeted at addressing so many issues relating to tourism development in the state. He stated that the bill, when passed into law, will repeal the Lagos State Waterfront and Tourism Development Corporation Law 2002, captured in Cap L 71 2015 of laws of Lagos State. He further stated that the Lagos State Waterfront and Tourism Development Corporation Law 2002, captured in Cap L 71 2015 of laws of Lagos State, has presently constituted conflicts, overlap, and constrains tourism development in the state. He added that in order to restore investors' confidence in tourism development and reinforce Lagos State as a state of aquatic splendor and a tourism destination globally, there was need to have a modern and dynamic law on tourism in the state. He highlighted the 26 section bill and the schedule attached to it with a view to eliciting positive response from the participants while enjoining them to contribute immensely to the bill. 4. Observations. It was observed that the interpretation section of the bill was section 24 instead of section 1, as is the practice of the House of Assembly. 2. That section 2 of the bill with side note objectives of the agency should actually be objectives of the law. 3. That some provisions of section 2 of the bill will be better achieved as functions of the agency. 4. That the content of the schedule to the bill should form part of the substantive provisions of the bill, as is the practice of the House to include sundry matters relating to the meetings of the board in the body of the bill and not as a schedule. 5. That the bill is not all-encompassing to properly capture the intendment of the bill. Hence, the need to create additional sections to properly capture the essence of the bill. 6. That the bill empower the agency to issue licenses to tourism enterprises, but this function will be too much responsibility for the agency to effectively discharge, as the hotel and licensing law is already saddled with these responsibilities and will lead to overlapping and duplicity of functions. Recommendations. 5. Recommendations. Based on the above observations, the committee hereby recommend as follows: that 1. Move section 24 with the side note interpretation to section 1 and renumber all other sections accordingly. In section 1, insert the following definitions. Roman figure 1. Environmental impact assessment means a systematic examination conducted to determine whether or not a program, activity, or project will have any adverse impact on the environment. Roman figure 2. Sustainable tourism means tourism development that meets the needs of present visitors and hosts while protecting and enhancing opportunity for the future. Roman figure 3. Tourism operator means the registered owner of a tourism establishment. Roman figure 4. Tourism establishment includes, Roman figure 1, an establishment that provides temporary accommodation for a guest for a continuous period of less than 1 month and includes a building, structure, or place in which accommodation or lodging with or without food is provided for a price to travelers, such as cabin, cottage, housekeeping unit, hotel lodge, motel, inn, hostel, bed and breakfast establishment, resort, travel trailer park, recreational vehicle park, houseboat, camping cabin and campground. Roman figure 2, tour guide operator, or Roman figure 3, tourism promotion services establishment. Number 2, delete the definition of agency. This is because it has been defined in the bill. Number 3, old section 1 with the side note establishment of the tourism agency is now section 2, and the draft section 2 to read thus. 2, the agency shall A, be a body corporate with perpetual succession and a common seal. B, have powers to sue and be sued in its corporate name. And C, be capable of acquiring, holding, managing, or disposing of movable or immovable property for the purpose of performing its functions under this law. 4, the draft section 2, now section 3 with the side note objectives of the law to read thus. Objectives of the law. 3, the objectives of the law are to A, promote, market, and develop the state domestically and internationally as a major global tourist destination by highlighting its uniqueness, and assisting the development of its tourism products and services. B. Develop and promote Lagos State as a premier travel and tourist destination. C. Attract and increase tourist arrivals and direct tourism investment. D. Identify and develop potential tourism destinations in the state. E. Maximize the economic and social benefit of tourism. F. Encourage and promote improved standards of tourist establishment and facilities, attractions and services offered to tourists. G. Facilitate closer cooperation between government and participants in the tourism industry in the state. And H. Encourage active public-private partnership in the development of tourism in the state. Number 5. Old Section 3 with the side note, functions of the agency, is now Section 4 and is redrafted to include the following. F. Ensure regular local and international advertisement of the state as a major tourist destination. G. Facilitate the creation of investment opportunities for tourism development by focusing on the following key segments. Roman figure. Hi. 1. Beach and leisure. 2. Culture and heritage. 3. Arts and entertainment. 4. Nature and adventure. 5. Wellness and medical tourism. 6. Business, meetings, incentives, conferences and events, MICE in brackets. H. Develop and promote the state as a center for international meetings, conventions, exhibitions, sports, medical and wellness, nature and adventure, beach and leisure, culture and heritage, arts and entertainment tourism, and other special events. High. Market the state as a business tourism destination by Roman figure 1. Coordinating biddings for the state. 2. Collaborating with any other person, suitable bodies or organs of the state to develop and promote tourism in the state. J. Maintain relations with tour operators, travel agents and the hotel industry in respect of tourism in the state. K. Promote places of entertainment and night clubs. L. Create and beautify recreational parks, zoos and gardens within designated tourism zones. M. Coordinate the activities of tourism organizations in the state. N. Identify tourism market needs and trends and advise tourism stakeholders accordingly. O. Undertake and coordinate tourism research and analysis in accordance with the provisions of this law. P. Collate and analyze information for the sector and other clients in the private and public sectors relating to figure 1. Tourism products and services at the international, regional, national, and local levels. 2. Trends in tourism. 3. Processes or activities likely to impact on sustainable tourism. And 4. Tourism statistics. Q. Assess strategies and techniques for product development and marketing. R. Undertake market intelligence. X. Determine in consultation with lead agencies the carrying capacities of the various tourism destinations and conservation needs and priorities. T. Assess information that is the basis of integrated tourism development area plans. U. Research on sustainable tourism and other emerging areas. V. Organize symposia, conferences, workshops, and other meetings to promote the exchange of views on issues relating to tourism research and analysis. W. Publish annually research findings and communicate recommendations to the relevant lead agencies, institutions, and other stakeholders in the tourism sector. X. Collaborate with the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation and other federal government agencies for the purpose of achieving the objectives of this law. Y. Explore and market tourism resources and products. Z. Attract, promote, facilitate, and service large-scale tourism events, fairs, conventions, and expositions. AA. Devise and maintain a data platform for the collation of data and information about tourism. BB. Develop wide and varied tourism products in alignment with the key focus sectors referred to in this law. CC. Develop tourist centers within the state. And DD. Receive in consideration of the services rendered by the agency such commission or payment as may be agreed upon. EE. Ensure that licenses issued under the hotel and licensing law are monitored for compliance with the provisions of this law. Number 2. Prescribe the principles, objectives, standards, indicators, procedures, and incentives for the development, management, and marketing of sustainable tourism, and shall in particular prescribe A. The packaging of niche tourism products and services. B. standard for tourism area development plans. C. Measures to facilitate and enhance domestic and regional tourism. D. Priority areas for tourism development, capacity building and training. E. Innovative schemes, incentives, and ethics to be applied in the development and marketing of sustainable tourism, including public-private partnerships. F. Clear targets indicating projection in tourism growth annually. G. Measures necessary to ensure equitable sharing of benefits in tourism sector. H. Adaptation and mitigation measures to avert adverse impact of climate change on tourism products and services. I. A plan for the development, implementation, and coordination of the national tourism marketing strategy. And J. Lagos State as a premier tourist destination at international, regional, national, and local levels. Number 6. Old Section 4 with the side note, establishment and composition of the governing board is now Section 5 and drafted complete to read thus. Establishment and composition of the Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Board. 1. There is established for the agency the Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Governing Board, referred to in this law as the Governing Board. 2. The board shall comprise of A. 5 members who shall be appointed from the 5 divisions of the state from public or private sector of the state. B. The Commissioner for Tourism or a representative not below grade level 15. And C. A representative for each from the Lagos State chapter of the 1. Nigeria Hotel Association. 2. National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies. 3. Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria. Number 3. A. The chairman shall be a person of proven integrity and relevant qualification with a passion for tourism and tourism development in the state. B. The members of the board, other than the ex-official members, shall be persons of proven integrity and ability with relevant professional qualifications and experience in the field of tourism, entertainment, and hospitality. 4. The chairman and members of the board, other than the ex-official members, shall be appointed by the governor, subject to the confirmation of the House of Assembly. Number 7. Old Section 6 with the side note, remuneration and allowances, is now Section 7 and amended in line 2 by deleting the phrase in line with extant financial and pay policy of the state government. 8. Old Section 7 with the side note, cessation of office, is now Section 8 and the drafted to read thus. Cessation of office. Number 8. 1. A member of the board shall cease to hold office if the member A. becomes unsound mind or incapable of carrying out the duties of the office. B. Has been convicted of a felony or any offense involving dishonesty. C. Is an undischarged bankrupt or is in financial distress. D. Is guilty of gross misconduct in relation to the duties of the office. 2. A member of the board may resign from the appointment by giving a notice in writing addressed to the governor, and the membership shall cease on the date of resignation. 3. The governor may remove any member of the board if certified that it is in the interest of the public to do so. 9. Create a new Section 9 with a side note, meeting, to read meetings. 9. 1. The board shall meet at least 4 times in every calendar year and at other times as may be required for the due performance of its functions under this law. 2. The chairman shall convene an extraordinary meeting not later than 21 days from the receipt of notice written and signed by at least 3 members stating the matter to be discussed. 3. If the chairman fails to convene the meeting as requested by the members in accordance with the subsection 2 above within the prescribed time, the secretary shall, on the refusal of the chairman, convene the meeting. 4. If the chairman is absent from any scheduled meeting of the board, the members present shall elect one of the members present to preside at that meeting. Number 10. Create a new Section 10 with the side note, validity of proceedings, to read thus. Validity of proceedings. 10. An act or proceedings of the board shall not be invalidated by reason or any vacancy among its members, defects in the appointment of a member, or by reason that a person not entitled to do so took part in the proceedings. 11. Create a new Section 11 with the side note, quorum, to read thus. Quorum. 11. The quorum for a meeting of the board shall be 5 members. 12. Create a new Section 12 with the side note, voting, to read thus. Voting. 12. 1. A decision of the board shall be determined by the majority of the members present and voting. 2. Where there is equality of vote, the chairman or the person presiding shall have a deliberative and casting vote. 13. Create a new Section 13 with the side note, power to co-opt, to read thus. Power to co-opt. 13. Where the board desires to obtain the advice of any person on a matter, the board may co-opt that person to be a member for such meetings as may be required, and the person so co-opted shall have all the rights and privileges of a member, but shall not be entitled to vote on any question or count towards quorum. 14. Create section 16 with the side note power to invest, to read thus power to invest. 16. The agency may invest any money belonging to it by way of endowment, whether for general or special purposes, and any such money not immediately required for current expenditure in any investment or securities, and shall have power to vary and such investment in accordance with the extant financial regulations of the state. 15. Create a new section 17 with the side note joint private venture, to read thus joint private venture. 17. 1. The agency may enter into any joint venture for the purpose of carrying into effect the objectives of this law. 2. Any joint venture entered into by the agency shall be subjected to the public-private partnership law, CH P 17, laws of Lagos State 2015. 16. Old section 12 with the side note appointment of the general manager is now section 20, and subsection 1 is drafted to read thus appointment of the general manager. 21. There shall be for the agency a general manager who shall be appointed by the governor, subject to the confirmation of the House. 16A. Create a new section 22 to read thus legal advisor of the agency. 22. 1. There shall be for the agency a legal advisor who shall be a legal practitioner with at least 10 years post-call experience. 2. The legal advisor shall be responsible to the general manager in the performance of the functions of the office. 3. The legal advisor shall be responsible for the following: A. Provide legal advice with respect to the duties of the board. B. Attend to legal issues affecting the agency. And C. General performance of all other duties affecting the board as may be assigned by the general manager. 17. Old section 14 with the side note application of the pensions law is now section 24. 18. Create a new section 26 with the side note power to borrow, to read thus power to borrow. 26. The agency shall have borrowing powers as may be allowed under the external financial regulations of the state, subject to the approval of the House of Assembly. 19. The draft old section 18, now section 28 with the side note audit, to read audit. 28. The general manager shall prepare at the end of each financial year statement of its account, which shall be audited by a firm of external auditors appointed by the board from the list of approved auditors provided by the Auditor General of the state in accordance with the state audit law. 20. Delete old section 20. 21. Create a new section 30 with the side note registers, to read thus register. 31. The agency shall keep and maintain registers of all: A. Standards for the tourism area development plans formulated by the commissioner under the provisions of this law. B. Licenses and permits issued under this law. C. Tourism facilities, activities, and services approved under this law. D. Public and private sector institutions or associations involved in tourism or tourism-related activities and services. E. Authorized expatriates in consultation with the ministry relating to immigration working in the tourism and hospitality sector within the country. And F. Institutions offering tourism and hospitality training. 2. All registers kept and maintained under this section shall be open for inspection to members of the public during official working hour at the agency's office on payment of prescribed fee. Number 22. Create a new section 31 with the side note tourism levy, to read thus tourism levy. 31. 1. The commissioner shall by notice require all persons engaged in tourism activities and services in the state to pay a tourism levy of 1% of its profit after tax every year. 2. The tourism levy notice may make different provisions in relation to different tourism activities and services. 3. All monies received in respect of the tourism levy shall be paid into the fund of the agency and shall be used solely for development of tourism in the state. 4. A person who fails to comply with the provision of this section commits an offence and is liable on conviction to a fine of 250,000 naira only. 5. In addition to the penalty imposed under section 4, a tourism operator or the operator of a tourism-related business who fails or refuses to pay the levy imposed shall be denied access to any government services. Number 23. Create a new section 32 with the side note tourism standard officer, to read thus tourism standard officer. 32. 1. The agency may appoint: A. An employee of the agency, or B. Any person with whom the agency has entered into a contract or any individual employed by such person as a tourism standard officer for the purposes of this law and the regulations made under it. 24. Create a new section 33 with the side note power to enter and inspect. To read thus: power to enter and inspect. 1. A duly authorized officer of the agency shall have power to enter and conduct an inspection of a tourism establishment for the purpose of ensuring the tourism establishment meets the requirements of this law, the regulations made under it, and other relevant laws of the state as may be incidental to the operation and maintenance of a tourism establishment. 2. For the purpose of enforcing this law and the regulations made under it, a duly authorized officer may, at any reasonable time and without a warrant, A. Enter the premises of any tourism establishment, and B. Inspect the premises and the register of any tourism establishment. 3. A duly authorized officer shall not enter any part of tourism establishment that is a dwelling unit rented and actually occupied by a tourist or member of the public, or B. Private dwelling place of the owner or staff member of the tourism establishment without the consent of the occupier or without a warrant. 25. Create a new section 34 with the side note obstruction of officer. To read thus: obstruction of officer. 34. A person shall not obstruct or assault a tourism standard officer while the tourism standard officer is exercising his or her authority or performing a duty under this law on the regulations made under it. 26. Create a new section 35 with the side note register to be kept by a tourism establishment. To read thus: register to be kept by a tourism establishment. 35. 1. Every tourism operator of a licensed tourism establishment shall ensure that a register is maintained for the tourism establishment, and that for every person who rents a rental unit or site at the tourism establishment, there is entered in the register: A. The name and address of the person. B. The number and type of the rental unit or site rented by the person. C. The motor vehicle license number of the person if the person is traveling by motor vehicle. D. The number of the people in the travel party if the person is sharing the rental unit or site rented. And E. Such other information of the person as may be required by the regulations made under this law. 2. The tourism operator of the tourism establishment shall ensure that an occupancy return for the tourism establishment is prepared and is submitted to the agency each month in accordance with the regulations made under this law. 3. A tourism operator or manager of a tourism establishment shall not knowingly enter a false statement or knowingly permit such a statement to be entered in the register or an occupancy return for tourism establishment. 4. A person shall not, when registering in a tourism establishment, A. Represent himself or herself as bearing a name other than his or her own name, or B. Make any false statement as to his or her place of residence. 27. Create a new section 36 with the side note provision of identification. To read thus: provision of identification. 36. Every user of a tourist establishment must, when registering, provide a valid and acceptable means of identification. 28. Create a new section 37 with the side note refusal of accommodation. To read thus: refusal of maybe accommodation. 37. A registered person with a tourist establishment evicted where the person: 1. Acts in a way that may endanger the reputation of the tourism establishment, or 2. Disturbs the comfort of the guest of the tourism establishment. 29. Create a new section 38 with the side note lien on baggage. To read thus: lien on baggage. 38. Every tourist operator has a lien on the baggage and property of every person registered at the operator's tourism establishment for the value of any accommodation or service provided. 30. Old section 21 with the side note protection from personal liabilities is now section 39 and redrafted to read thus: protection from personal liabilities. 39. A member of the board, officer, employee, or agent of the agency shall not be liable for an act done or omitted to be done in the discharge of the person's duties done in good faith. 31. Create a new section 40 with the side note research permit. To read thus: research permit. 41. A person shall not undertake research on the tourism sector unless that person has a research permit granted by the agency to carry out the research. 2. A person granted a research permit under subsection 1 of this section may be required, upon completion of the research, to deposit a copy of the research report, thesis, or assessment with the agency for data purposes. 3. A person who had carried out a research on the tourism in the state before the commencement of this law may register and deposit such research work with the agency for data purposes. 4. A researcher from outside Nigeria state shall be required to have a sponsoring institution from the home country state, and a locally recognized collaborating institution shall guarantee that the researcher shall comply with the requirements under this law. 5. The commissioner may prescribe regulations to carry out the purposes of this section. 32. Create a new section 41 with the side note establishment of the tourism database. To read thus: establishment of the data of tourism database. 41. 1. The agency shall, in collaboration with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government and stakeholders, establish a comprehensive tourism database for tourism in the state. 2. The database established under subsection 1 of this section shall include relevant data produced by the National Bureau of Statistics, universities, and research institutions, or as a consequence of collaborative research by the agency with local and foreign institutions and researchers. 3. The agency shall, in consultation with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of the government and stakeholders, ensure that data is collated in accordance with any harmonized standards that may be prescribed under this law or regulations made under it. 4. The agency shall always make the data and information in its database available and accessible to stakeholders and the general public. 33. Create a new section 42 with the side note access to public records, etc. To read thus: access to public record, etc. 42. 1. The general manager shall, on request, have access to public records or documents of a lead agency in the custody of a person or an establishment where, in the general manager's opinion, the information sought is for the purposes of obtaining the required tourism data completion or correction of the information already obtained. 2. A person who does not, without a valid reason, grant the general manager access to the records or documents in accordance with subsection 1 commits an offense. 34. Create a new section 43 with the side note access to data by persons. To read thus: access to data by persons. 43. 1. Subject to subsection 3 of this section, a person may, upon application, access any data or information upon payment as may be prescribed by the agency. 2. The agency shall avail the data or information under subsection 1 in the format requested unless a. It is reasonable for it to make the information available in another format, or b. The information is already publicly available and easily accessible to the applicant in another format. 3. The agency may refuse to grant an application under subsection 1 where the data is in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act is classified and restricted. 4. The agency shall communicate to the applicant in writing the reasons for refusal within 21 days from the date of making the decision. 5. The commissioner may, on the recommendation of the board, prescribe regulations to effectively carry out of the provisions of this section. 35. Create a new section 44 with the side note monitoring mechanism. To read thus: monitoring mechanism. 44. 1. The agency may, with the approval of the commissioner, develop monitoring mechanisms and set indicators to determine a. Sound management of tourism products and services, and b. Trends affecting the state's tourism sector. 2. The agency shall give a report to the commissioner on the result of the monitoring mechanism against the predetermined indicators. 3. The commissioner shall at least once in a year submit to the House of Assembly a monitoring report and avail the monitoring report to the public. 36. Create a new section 45 with the side note restraint of breaches. To read thus: restraint of breaches. 45. A person who has reason to believe that the provisions of this law have been or are about to be violated may petition the High Court for a declaration that the provisions of this law are about to be contravened. B. An injunction restraining any specified person from carrying out the contravention. C. A right of mandamus against an officer or a person who has failed to perform a duty imposed by this law. Or D. Any remedy at law or equity for preventing or enforcing the provisions of this law. 37. Create a new section 46 with the side note common seal. To read thus: common seal. 46. The common seal of the agency shall be determined by the board, and the affixing of the common seal shall be authenticated by the signatures of the chairman and the secretary or any other member authorized by the board to act for that purpose. 38. Create a new section 47 with the side note liability for damage to read thus. Liability for damage. 47. The provisions of this section 39 shall not relieve a tourism establishment of the liability to pay compensation or damage to a person for an injury to that person, the person's property, or the person's interest caused by the exercise of the powers conferred on the agency by this law or by any other law or by the failure, whether wholly or partially. 39. Old section 23 with the side note power to make regulations is now section 48 and redrafted to read thus. Power to make regulations. 48. 1. The commissioner may, on recommendation of the agency, make regulations prescribing all matters which by this law are required to be prescribed or which are necessary for the better carrying out of or giving effect to the provisions of this law. 2. Without prejudice to the generality of subsection 1, regulations under subsection 1 may provide for a. The conditions which a license or permit may be granted or issued under this law. B. The criteria for standardization and classification of tourism facilities and services. C. The classification of tourism activities and services. D. Fees and other charges required to be paid under the law. E. The restriction, regulation, or other control of tourism activities and services. F. Beach management. G. The training of personnel for the tourism agencies and the tourism and hospitality sector in general. H. The code of practice for the tourism and hospitality sector. And I. Cooperation and consultation with the agency for higher education in matters relating to the regulation of the courses or programs of instruction leading to the award of certificates and diplomas in the tourism and hospitality sector. 3. Regulations made under this section may require acts or things to be performed or done to the satisfaction of the commissioner and may empower the respective tourism agencies to issue orders imposing conditions and dates upon, within or before which the acts or things shall be performed or done. 40. Create a new section 49 with the side note violation of the integrated tourism development area plan to read thus. Violation of the integrated tourism development area plan. 49. A person shall not fraudulently alter or revoke a. An approved integrated tourism development area plan required to be developed, or b. An approved integrated tourism development area plan under this law. 41. Create a new section 50 with the side note prohibition of pollution to read thus. Prohibition of pollution. 50. A person shall not a. Discharge any dangerous materials, substances, or oil into a designated tourism development area contrary to the provisions of this law or any other law, or b. Pollute wildlife habitats and ecosystems, or discharge any pollutant detrimental to the environment contrary to the provisions of this law or any other law. 2. A person who contravenes any of the provisions of section 1 commits an offence and is liable on conviction to a fine of not exceeding 500,000 naira or imprisonment in case of a natural person to a time not exceeding 3 years or both. 3. In addition to the fine imposed under subsection 2, the court may direct the convicted person to a. Pay the full cost of cleaning up the polluted wildlife habitats and ecosystem and mitigating effects of pollution, and b. Clean up the polluted habitats and ecosystems and mitigating effects of pollution to the satisfaction of the agency. 4. Without prejudice to the provisions of these subsections 2 and 3, the court may direct the concerned person to meet the cost of the effect of pollution to a third party through adequate compensation, restoration, or restitution. 42. Create a new section 51 with the side note offences and penalties to read thus. Offences and penalties. 51. 1. A person who a. fails to comply with a lawful requirement or demand made or given by an authorized officer. B. Obstruct another a person in the execution of the powers or duties conferred on that person under this law. C. Knowingly or recklessly make a statement or representation which is false. D. Knowingly or recklessly furnishes a document or information required under this law which is false. E. Knowingly or recklessly uses or furnishes a fake or forged or invalid license or a license that has been altered without authorization. F. Breaches or fails to comply with the provisions of this law commits an offence. 2. A person who is convicted for an offence under subsection 1 is liable to a fine not exceeding 200,000 naira or to imprisonment for a time not exceeding 2 years or both. 3. Where an offense under this law is committed by a body, corporate, or any other association of individuals, a director, partner, or any other person involved in or acting or purporting to act in the management of its affairs commits an offense unless that person proves that A, the act or omission constituting the offense took place without the person's knowledge, or B, the person took reasonable steps to prevent the commission of the offense. 4. A person who commits an offense under this law for which no specific penalty is provided is liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 100,000 naira or imprisonment for a time not exceeding 1 year or both. 5. A tourism establishment that contravenes the provisions of this section commits an offense and shall be liable on conviction to a fine of not less than 500,000 naira or imprisonment for a time not less than 6 months for an individual or both, or B, 1 million naira for corporate bodies. 43. Create a new section 52 with the side note enforcement to read thus. Enforcement 52. 1. The enforcement arm of the agency shall be a special unit of the Neighborhood Safety Corps. 2. The special unit shall be deployed from the Neighborhood Safety Corps to the agency and shall be specially trained to function in the tourism environment of the state. 44. Old section 25 with the side note repeal is now section 54 and amended by inserting the phrase CHL 71 volume 6 laws of Lagos State 2015 immediately after the word law. The number all sections and subsections accordingly. 6. Conclusion. The committee expresses its gratitude to Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the clerk of the House, the secretariat, and legal department for the opportunity given to carry out this onerous assignment. Thank you, Honorable Naim Babatunde Adas, Chairman, House Committee on Tourism. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Tunde Briber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I respectfully move that the report as rendered by the committee chairman be adopted for debate, sir.
Seconded the motion, sir.
Those in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Briber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And please permit me, sir, to thank the chairman of the committee for the report, very meticulously presented and powerfully renditioned. Mr. Speaker, but however, may I be permitted to observe, sir, that while considering the objectives of the agency under section 4 on page 4, the objectives are many, that I could not see it there, that one of the main objectives would be to enhance the revenue generation capacity of the state and to provide mass employment for people. The direction of tourism in the world now is such that it's a versatile area for providing employment and generating revenue. So I think we should charge this new agency with that word trend so that we can have alternative means of generating revenue. And also on page 5, I observed in paragraphs 5G and H there are many overlaps. Those two subparagraphs, G and H of paragraph 5 on page 5. So many overlaps of the functions there. And going to page 8, under page 8, section 6.4, the house was mentioned several times, but when you are reading it, I observe you read it to mean the House of Assembly. Please don't forget so that we can be very specific that the House of Assembly. And also paragraph 9 of the same page 8, you recommended that the board shall meet 4 times in a year. I'm a bit worried about that because we want to, this is a new agency, and much as we want the agency to be on part-time basis, I mean the board to be on part-time basis, I think we should encourage them to meet more regularly to set a sound footing for this new area that I want to deliberately look into to enhance our revenue generation capacity. Then going to page 10, okay, the same as our assemblies. I move to page 11, sir. Page 11, paragraph 19, where you recommended that the general manager shall prepare at the end of each financial year a statement of accounts. What if the GM is not, because we did not require the GM to be an accountant, so maybe it would have been better to have said maybe the agency shall prepare. So whoever is designated to prepare will do such. I think going to page 16, section 33(2), where we are talking about somebody refusing the general manager access. So a person who does not, without a valid reason, grant the GM access. The elegance of that drafting is a bit confusing. It's understandable what is said, but it could be clearer, please. Clearer, so there's no ambiguity. And on page 27, the common seal of the agency in section 37 is said to reside with the chairman and the secretary, who shall affix their signature with the seal. But the chairman is a part-time officer, so he may not be there most of the time. And what if we use his GM and the secretary? Just my own suggestion. I think, lastly, on page 20, talking about the neighborhood safety corps, I think the correct designation of the neighborhood safety corps is Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps, LNSC. So there's no doubt as to which agency we are referring to. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me use this medium to appreciate the committee, especially the chairman. It was a great job. However, Mr. Speaker, when you look at page 4, page 3, page 4 and 5, where we have section 4, on page 4, the 4 there, where we have a draft section 2, now section 3. And when you go to page 5, after H, it's supposed to be continuation of the functions. But there, under the 5, old section 3 with the sideline note, functions of the agency is now section 4. When you look at it with what you have on page 4 and what we have on page 5, it's supposed to be continuation of section 3 and not section 4. So you can redraft your section 4 now to become section 3 now to become section 4. I hope what I said there is understandable. Mr. Speaker, then when you go to page 18, section 48, page 18, where you have powers to make regulations. The commissioner may, on recommendation of the agency, blah, 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 subject to the approval of the House or in tandem with the regulation law. So you cannot just tell the commissioner to fix rates, which is not known to this House and which has not gotten the approval of this House, just like the other time we were talking about the second bridge, the Lekki toll gate. It caused a lot of problems. So subject to the approval of the House. But generally, Mr. Speaker, this bill, to me, is not balanced. It's skewed towards the establishment, the regulators, and the states. But it talks so little about those tourist establishments in terms of protecting them. Number one, for example, if you have somebody, an impersonator, who approach them, who swindle them, there is no provision in the bill that protects the establishment. How do you resolve? Is there any mechanism to resolve this disputes? Where if peradventure there is an extortion or there is what I call ridiculous or outrageous bills. How do you resolve that? How do you protect those establishments? All we see here is penalty. Then finally, Mr. Speaker, I believe that when you are talking about tourism, it's supposed to be holistic. It's not limited to just the government or those agencies of government, but also those practitioners. And we have been to Dubai, we have been to other places, and we see that after establishment and after they must have registered, maybe they just started business and they registered, they are given probably 1 year tax holiday for them to break even before they are subjected to taxation. And I think this will be an incentive for those practitioners or establishments to willingly register with government or government agency when they are starting their businesses. But when we look at it from point of just penalty, punishment, without looking at the other side, how do they benefit from that? It's supposed to be mutually beneficial. I rest my case. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If we look at page 14, that's protection and personal liabilities. Members of the board, officer, employee, or agent of the agency shall not be liable for an act done or omitted to be done in the charge of their person duty done in good faith. Mr. Speaker, in good faith is a subjective. So how do we determine the good faith? Somebody may commit an offense and say he has done it in a good faith, but his intention may not be in good faith. So how do we determine that? That's number one, Mr. Speaker. Number two, sir, concerning the appointment of general manager and the appointment of general manager and that of the chairman of the board, there must be a specific functions of it so that it will not be conflicting. Their functions will not be conflicting. So we must look at that. Again, Mr. Speaker, the commissioner has been given, when the composition of the board, a commissioner, I'm not comfortable with the commissioner being in the composition, but a representative of the office of the ministry may be there. Because if the commissioner is there, then what we are running from, that's a bureaucracy, may crop in the sense that the commissioner, when commissioner is there and the chairman is there or the general manager, commissioner will automatically be the chairman of that very of the board, taking it to the protocol. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Council,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
please go straight to your point and make what you want to.
All right, sir. While appreciating the, well, I just want to mention very quickly, sir, that in the composition of the governing board, from the list of what we have here, the general manager can't sit in the board, and if he's not part of the board, how does he now implement the decisions of the board that has been taken? However, in his absence, I feel like he should be aware of what is going on, and he should be a part of the board. Secondly, sir, on page 10, under the appointment of the general manager, I feel the need for the appointment to be of a professional in that field, just like we have the legal advisor of that agency. And of course, it was mentioned earlier about being the accountant general, the accountant of the agency per se. And lastly, on page 17, the common seal, under the common seal, as mentioned earlier, I would just support that. So generally, those are my observations. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Going straight to page 9. It should actually be section 9.2 on page 9. RAM is the first section 2 there, which reads, the chairman shall convene an extraordinary meeting not later than 21 days from the receipt of a notice written and signed by at least 3 members stating the matter to be discussed. The quorum of this meeting is 5. I think that should also be 5. That's my suggestion to the committee. So that if the meeting is eventually called, they will have a quorum. If there are 3 and they don't have a quorum, there will be any point. The second issue there is on page 12, starting from page 11, tourism levy, which reads section 31(1). The commissioner shall by notice require all persons engaged in tourism activities and services in the state to pay a tourism levy of 1% of its profit after tax every year. While I understand that we need to generate some money from their activities, like Honorable Lowo said, one, we shouldn't overburden them with tax, but in the exclusive list of the Constitution, item 59, taxation of income and profit, capital gain, etc., is exclusively the federal government's purview. So if you want to collect money from them, it cannot come as a percentage of their profit. So maybe there's a flat rate that can be charged, but a tax holiday will also be nice. That's my suggestion. One thing, I also want to commend them for a great job done. Thank you.
Well, the way we are going about our reactions to the report is like, going back to amend what they have done. We had the opportunity for the second reading where, to our advantage, we could have made every contributions and adjustments. At the report stage, which is supposed to be the outcome of what we agree to during the second reading. If a report is being presented and we have to start taking it section by section, it's either we just return the report or take it back to second reading again. And if there's going to be any amendment to reports, it has a process. But from those who have contributed, it's like introducing, entirely new dimension to what we have. As from those who have spoken so far, it's like this section should be like this one should be like this, that one should be like this one. So I don't know. We call it reports. And the report is just to look at it. If all we have said has been taken care of, and if there is going to be minor amendment to what they have presented, so we can take it. But this time, this section, that section, I don't know. Is it that we just take the whole thing back? Chief Whip, or at least you are the custodian of the rules. Can you please put up your lights?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to believe that it is still in order for members to discuss extensively reports on the floor of the House. What we are doing today is a report from stakeholders' participation in the bill, because as stated in our rule book, our procedure, second reading is for us to discuss the merits and the merits of the bill, after which the bill is committed to the committee. And at that stage, what the committee does is to invite members of the public to make input into the bill. What we are doing today is simply discussing, because the observations are what must have been imputed during the public hearing. So what we are doing today is discussing the report of the public hearing, which I think is in order, Mr. Speaker.
Please don't discuss. You want to cite that in your rules.
Sir, it is the procedure for the passage of bills, sir. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, while I note with great appreciation your observation in respect of what is going on, I wish to justify the submission of a chief whip, sir, that the present debate is quite necessary and perhaps occasioned by the development we have had in respect of this bill. When this bill came, it was not as extensive as what we are having now. At the public hearing, many other things were introduced. And to the best of my knowledge also, the committee also arranged for another stakeholder meeting with some other elements. So what we have had there are very enormous. And after this stage, what we will have will be the third reading, and the bills goes for assent. If we do not take this opportunity to look at likely contradictions or overlap, like Honorable Isha who raised the issue of constitutional position. No matter any law that is made that runs contrary to the position of the Constitution, shall to the extent of its conflict be null and void. So I think, Mr. Speaker, if we do all of this and the committee goes back to effect necessary changes, it will make the bill to be more robust, and of course, at the end of the day, we will get a better product. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Satoji.
Thank you very much, sir. In view of the issues raised, I don't know whether I can continue with my own comment. And my comment, sir, is that on page 4, paragraph 4, which has to do with the objective of the law, 3A says promote, market, and develop the state domestically and internationally as a major global tourist destination. The word global there is like tautology in the sense that we have mentioned domestically and internationally. And the correction has been effected in paragraph 5. Paragraph 5F, it says ensure regular, local, and international advertisement of the state as a major tourist destination. They have removed global from there. Lastly, sir, in line with the last two comments, sir, I believe page 19, sorry, page 18, section 41, that has to do with prohibition of pollution. It may amount to double arrest sometimes when this area has been adequately taken, this law has been adequately handled by the Ministry of Environment Law in the area of pollution. They have adequately, treated this matter. So when somebody err or contravene this law, it can be arrested twice for the same offense by the Ministry of, by this agency, and also by the Ministry of Tourism. I think this, we should not be creating the same law should not appear in different agencies when the offense is still the same. That's my submission, sir.
Honorable Abiu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to make a few comments on the report here rendered, and also say that the bill under consideration is an executive bill, and the proponents of the bill have an intendiment. I agree that bills are not meant to go back the way it came, but in trying to make amends with the bill, we should not. We should also not lose sight completely. For instance, Mr. Speaker, the original bill that was sent, sir, made provision for the appointment of a general manager, and it also explained the role of the general manager. Again, the old bill also suggested that we have a secretary stroke legal advisor. Now, in what has just been done, as raised by Honorable Kasumu, indeed, if you look at the composition as reported by the committee on page 7, one, he spoke about the establishment and composition of the governing board here. Here, other than the fact, here, no one has been saddled with the responsibility of the day-to-day running of the board from all that has been written here. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 7, where he spoke about page 10, where he spoke about the appointment of a general manager, he only just said there shall be a general manager who shall be appointed by the governor subject to confirmation of the House. Here again, they have not, one, defined the person that will serve as, the requirement for general manager. Again, they have also left out the responsibility of general manager here. Now, if we have a board where we expect the general manager to do day-to-day running, and it's not included in the report here, I think this is an omission, and I want that to be looked at. Again, sir, the drafters of the bill also attempted to have a secretary stroke legal advisor. What the committee has simply done, I want to believe that they have separated the office of the secretary from that of the legal advisor. So I want to believe that they agreed to the existence of the secretary with the roles hereby mentioned, and now created a new one for the legal advisor. Well, I don't have any issues with that. But going further, Mr. Speaker, I wish to be cleared on a certain provision in this law that subjects the clearance of general manager to the approval of the House of Assembly. I know the governor has executive powers and he can actually employ. Now, what I have been thinking in my head, or what I think is appropriate, is that we only subject appointees of statutory boards to the confirmation of the House. I don't think it is appropriate for general managers to come for House confirmation. I wish to be enlightened on this. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for being magnanimous in allowing this contribution to continue. One, I just would want to say that there are just a few things I want to be looked at. One, on page 20, 51L, line 3, page 20. Duties of parents to comply with the provisions of this law permits an offense. I guess constitute an offense to be more appropriate. Also, I want us to also look at the section 34, 43.5, line 3. I think on page 15, line 3. Where I just say the commissioner may, on the recommendation of the board, prescribe regulations to effectively carry out of the provision. I guess the off should just be removed. Also, 28, Section 2837, the side note on page 14. On page 14. In the introduction, it said, create a new section 37 with the side note, refusal of accommodation to readers. Then, when they want to read, they say refusal or maybe accommodation. I think it just be refusal of accommodation as stated above. Stated above. I also want the committee, I'm not being suggestive here, to look at the quorum, because I guess there are just about 8 or 9 members. If they are saying 5, that is just more than 50% of the membership to constitute a forum. Besides that, I think it was a good job. It's a job well done, and I also noticed the powerful rendition by the chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. I just want to call our attention to page 20, section 43, which talks about enforcement, and there was reference to the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps and the need to create a special enforcement arm of the agency to work with this tourism agency. And I'm just wondering, because we know the limitation of the Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps, we know their limitation. They don't bear arms. And we know that world over, globally, security is important to tourism and investment. We have had situations over time where tourists are trapped and dispossessed of their valuables. And I think given the limitation that the Neighborhood Safety Corps has, I am not sure they will have the capacity to deal with the situation at hand. So I would suggest that Section 52 should consider the side note as being establishment of security and enforcement units. The security and enforcement unit now can now work, collaborate with the Nigerian police, which has the capacity to be able to enhance security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is on section 16, power to infest. The agency may infest any money belong to it by way of endowment. Since it's an agency under the state, I'm of opinion that it needs the recommendation from the Accountant General, and the recommendation is subject to the approvals of the House.
Mr. Speaker, I want to call our attention to page 15. Page 15, that is paragraph 31, paragraph 31, 5, talking about regulation. The commissioner may prescribe regulations to carry out the purpose of this section. I just want to remind that it has to be in compliance with the regulation approval law of the state. Mr. Speaker, without speaking for the chairman of the committee, I just wish to say that the issues raised immediately before I come up with my observation as regards the neighborhood safety corps. I think section 55.2 proposed here talked about special units which shall be deployed for the neighborhood safety corps to the agency and shall be specially trained to function in the tourism environment. I think that should sufficiently take care of the fear of my brother as regards the competence to work in that capacity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you all. That making reference to the position of the chief whip and the majority leader, I still want to correct the impression that at the presentation of reports, no amendments is allowed to the report of the committee. And that is why during the second reading, after the second reading, when we discuss the, how do we put it, merits and the merits of the bill. So if anyone has, something that is quite different, such person is being urged to meet with the committee during the second reading or before the reports. So at the points where reports has been prepared and is being presented, and we are now coming with something different to the position of the committee, it amounts to amending the whole thing they have done. Honorable Abiru, who is the chief, you can check your 74(2) of the rules. So there's a procedure. If we have done what we are supposed to do at the earlier stage of the bill, whatever inputs we wish to introduce, whatever contribution we choose to introduce, we will have done that, and it will have formed the part of the report. So by the time a report has been presented, Honorable A is coming up with a new idea. Honorable B is also of a different view, and the person from Ibejileki is also adding his own. Shomolu also, Koshofe. So at the end of the day, what do you think we are doing? So we are saying they should take the report back and start adding something different entirely. So I just want to urge us that at every point a bill is committed to a committee, we should make whatever input, whatever contributions we want to make. When it comes to this session, it's just to look at the report. If it has not fear of the major intent of the bill. So coming up with different ideas, I think this should be added, this should be removed. We are now creating a new, be different from what we have done during the second reading. And as I agree with you, public hearing, people will come with ideas and all such, which should be also accommodated in the bill. But at the committee level, each member has access to the committee to also make contributions. So that is my take. Yeah, Honorable Abiru, you still want to read?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I do not have much to say, but even
I didn't say you should say much.
Yes, even if that is what the rule book says, honestly, I think we may have to look.
We may have to
have a relook at the rule book, sir, even if that is what it says. Because, I mean, as you have rightly observed, at that point, when we invite stakeholders, they come up with different ideas, and I think we should also
I agree, I've said that. That is why we
discussions.
are all part of the exercise
Very
at
well,
the
sir.
public hearing.
Very well, sir.
Each member is expected to participate during the public hearing, to take in the contributions of the, what is it called?
The stakeholders, sir.
The stakeholders.
Very well, sir.
So thereafter, the report begins, so that we can also make our own inputs and make our own alteration at that stage. But all I'm saying, why I'm saying this is that if we have a bill, you know that the size of a bill also matters.
Very well, sir.
In a situation where you have a bill that is very voluminous, and you have to go through it stage by stage, page by page, section by section, each one of us is bringing in alteration. So it amounts, you still have to send back, which there is possibility that even at a sitting, you will not be able to, finish with such a. But what we should do, I agree with you, if we have to look at the bill, I'm sorry, the, no, the rules
Yes, sir.
to alter the provision. Well, it's like creating privilege for laxity on the part of members. Because we have, during the second reading, you have your own opportunity to make input. And if we have not had enough time, we can even create second allotted day to continue discussion. So the case is not about having opportunity to contribute. Is just taking advantage of the report stage to do what we have missed during the second reading. Because the committee is expected to, mop the opinions of every member during the second reading to form part of the report. So when they now bring their report, if you have read something during the second reading and that thing is not taking, it's not being added to the report, fine, we can now raise issues, this. But if we miss that opportunity and we are now coming to report stage to start bringing new ideas to the report, that is what I'm trying to emphasize. So I agree at the stakeholders meeting, people will make inputs and we have to accommodate their inputs in the report. But we all are supposed to be part of the stakeholders meeting. From what we have been saying, no one has said the stakeholders said this, we did not accommodate it. No one has raised that we have left out the opinion of the stakeholders. What we are doing now is introducing our own view that this section should not be like this, save for spelling and omission, maybe that. But bringing ideas that, okay, I think section so should be like this. I think section so, which I agree with you that it's an opportunity to but the period of, according to the rules, representation of report is not created for a new ideas or suggestion that is not part of the bill. However, we have listened to everybody. You have made your contributions. Mr. Chairman, I hope you are able to capture all they have said.
Yes, sir.
And you have a response.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. First and foremost, I would like to salute the courage of the members for their contribution, their arguments, their unequivocal arguments. And I want to state for clarity that Honorable Tunde Ibrahim talk about employment and generating revenue for the state. Well, we are all looking for revenue of the state to increase, and that is the purpose of this bill. If this bill is passed, we'll look for a way to generate more revenue for the state. And we'll talk about the employment. If you look at the bill, there's what we call standard tourist officer. It's a way to create more employment for our youth to benefit after this bill is being passed. And it talk about the house, the interpretation. Okay, we'll look into it. It has been noted. We'll do the interpretation as House of Assembly, Lagos State House of Assembly. Talk about the board 4 times in a year. Okay, we'll look into it. And it talk about the neighborhood safety corps. Well, at this point, we need to start encouraging our own, because this is the creation of the Lagos State House of Assembly. We need to start making them to function at this point in time, so that people from outside the world will look at it that we have started practicing what we call state policing. Now, if their purpose is, and the purpose of their work is, if they are unable to address the issue of security within their axis, they have the access to policemen within their axis, and that's why they, in the law, there's what we call special units in the law. They will attach policemen to their unit so that they will be able to function properly. I think I've been able to address the issue of Honorable Tunde Olowo, Honorable Tunde Brahimo. And Honorable Tunde Olowo also talk about the draft section 3. Honorable Rotimi Olowo talk about Honorable Olowo talk about the draft section 3 now to section 4. What section 3 is talking about is the objectives of the law. Okay, it's talking about objectives of the law, And while Section 4 is talking about functions of the law, there are two different things. But all in all, nobody is an island of knowledge. I appreciate all your comments and contributions. All of that things will be looked into, and we'll address everything properly. It will be, it will be corrected properly, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, correct properly. So, when you bring the third reading, we'll start amending again. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, debate on the reports presented is over. May I now humbly move that the House reverts to plenary. I so move.
Honorable Bill.
I know that the leader just raised the motion now, but I am not sure.
If that should be the next motion.
We are at the stage of that motion yet.
You can go ahead and do the next stage.
Well, I think it is even important for Mr. Speaker to actually rule on what has just...
You can go ahead and do the next stage.
Well,
Adoption of the report as...
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I hereby stand to adopt that...
You moved, you are not adopting.
That the report of the House as amended be adopted as a resolution of the House.
That the recommendation
of the House. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Oloworotivi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion.
All in favor say ayes. Those against the ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I must apologize for the slip. May I humbly move that the House reverts to plenary. As well.
Honorable Brahim.
I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, at the Committee of the Whole, the House took the presentation on the presentation of report on Lagos State Tourism Promotion Agency Bill 2018 as presented by Honorable Adams NB, the Chairman, House Committee on Tourism, Arts and Culture. The report so presented was debated, and after suggestions for amendment here and there, the recommendations of the committee was adopted by the whole House as the resolution of the House, and the House reverted to plenary. I wish to say that that's what transpired at the Committee of the Whole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Victor Akonde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to affirm that that was what, the recap is what happened at the Committee of the Whole.
Honorable Council.
I second the affirmation.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Distinguished members, I have the approval of the Right Honorable Speaker to move that this House adjourns to Monday, the 29th day of October at 12 noon. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby second the motion as moved by the majority leader, please.
All in favor say aye. Those against the ayes have it. This house stands adjourned till Monday, 29th October 2018 at 12 noon prompt. I rise.